Imagine an entire legion disappearing as if it had never existed. 9,000 Roman soldiers, not peasants, not improvised warriors, but men trained for years, hardened in brutal wars, loyal to the emperor, and then nothingness. No letter, no body, no armor, as if the earth had swallowed each one of them. And for centuries, Rome was silent. But the echo of this mystery still resonates among Britain's forgotten forests. The IX Hispana Legion was considered invincible. But even the strongest fall when the enemy is invisible. What happened to the legion that disappeared without leaving a single trace? And why did Rome pretend that it never existed? Founded in the Republican era, Legion 9 was forged in the wars against the rebels of Hispania. It was a symbol of discipline and victory. He fought indomitable tribes and crushed uprisings with brutal precision. Wherever he went, he left blood, but also respect. When the empire needed to contain rebellion in the most remote provinces, it was the ninth that they called, but not even his glory prevented what was to come. The Legio IX Hispana was born in the heart of the Roman Republic, but it enshrined itself on the battlefields of Hispania, where fierce tribes challenged Rome's authority with blood and fire. It was there that the legion proved itself, not as an ordinary troop, but as Rome's tug of war, crushing rebellions and planting the imperial flag where there had once been chaos. His victories were so many that the name Hispana became a mark of power. She was feared by her enemies and revered by her allies. The soldiers of the Ninth carried not only swords, but a reputation that preceded their footprints. When they marched, the cities fell silent. When they attacked, the walls shook. Many said that the very shadow of the legion was enough to quell an uprising. It was this legion that, after decades of bloody campaigns, was sent to the most hostile frontier of the empire, Brittany. But there, she would not only find enemies, I would find oblivion. If this story has held you this far, show that these soldiers have not been forgotten. Leave your like so that the truth of Legion 9 reaches more people, and write in the comments, I remember the ninth. Together let us echo the name that Rome tried to silence. Brittany was no ordinary province. It was the limit of the world known as Rome. A cold, humid territory, covered by dense and treacherous forests where the sun never seemed to set. There, civilization collided with the fierce resistance of tribal peoples. The Picts, Caledonians and Brigantes were not fighting for glory, but for survival. And they did so with a savagery that not even the Romans were prepared to face. The roads were precarious, the bridges fragile, and every bend in the forest hid the possibility of an ambush. Rome sent soldiers, but rarely recovered bodies. It was as if the earth sucked in everything that came from the south. The returning generals returned mute, with their eyes lost. It was in this scenario that the IX Hispana Legion was assigned to maintain order. But there, the concept of order was diluted in the swamp. It was lost among the mists and voices that came from the trees. The terrain was the enemy, the climate, a punishment, and the barbarians, invisible until the moment of the fatal blow. The Ninth Legion was about to disappear, but no one knew that yet. The last known record of the Ninth Legion is straightforward, but terrifying in its simplicity. It set out for the north. The order was to contain a tribal rebellion, one more among many, but this one would be different. The hills were silent, the paths too empty, the informants did not return, and yet the Legion marched, as he always did, proud, determined, invincible, or so it was believed. But after that expedition, silence, a dense, cutting silence that has crossed the centuries. No letter sent to the generals, no survivor reports, no request for reinforcements, nothing. The following camps found only faint marks on the earth, stray footprints that led nowhere. 9,000 men disappeared, 9,000 armors, 9,000 banners. The Legion's eagle, the ultimate symbol of Roman honor, was never recovered, as if she had been swallowed up by the shadows of the Scottish mountains. No battles recorded, no official defeat, just absence. And Rome, which recorded everything, simply stopped writing about the ninth. The empire that even documented eclipses chose to forget. Why? When an entire army disappears without a trace, the world tries to fill the silence with hypotheses. And with Legion 9, it was no different. The most accepted theory among historians is simple and brutal: a massacre. A surprise, fierce and definitive attack carried out by a coalition of barbarian tribes. A carnage so complete that not even the bodies could be identified. But there's a problem. Not even bones were found. Others suggest that the Legion may have been isolated, trapped between swamps and mountains, dying little by little from cold, hunger, ambushes. A slow death, silent, almost ritual. There are still those who believe in the most shameful possibility for Rome: desertion. Surrounded, forgotten, demoralized, would they have abandoned the mission, burned the banners, and fled to the mountains of Caledonia? Perhaps they lived as fugitives, or integrate with the local tribes, erasing the past in exchange for survival. If it did, it was the greatest breakdown of discipline in Roman military history. But then the question arises: why hide? Why would Rome pretend that the Legion never existed? For centuries, archaeologists have dug through the soil of northern Britain in search of answers. And what did they find? Fragments, silences, contradictory signals, Roman blades buried in remote locations, coins with the empire's coat of arms outside trade routes, incomplete registrations, fortifications abandoned in a hurry, as if something terrible had interrupted their construction. But the most intriguing thing is what was not found: bodies. There are no military cemeteries, there are no mass graves, there are no traces of a large-scale massacre. It is as if the Legion had been erased from the landscape with surgical precision. And this is not common. Rome left marks wherever it went: roads, bones, ruins. But from the ninth, almost nothing. Some experts believe that the Legion may have been split and destroyed into smaller skirmishes that are impossible to trace. Others speak of intentional removal of evidence, perhaps by the Romans themselves. The absence has become proof of something much greater, a truth so uncomfortable that time itself seems intent on hiding it. Rome was obsessed with records. He catalogued names, numbers, victories, and even defeats. But with Legion 9, something strange happens. The documents simply stop, without warning, no explanation. The Legion that has been active for decades disappears from the Imperial rolls as if it had never existed. From a certain year on, his name no longer appears on official lists, nor in campaign reports, nor in the buildings where he used to leave his mark. It is a deliberate silence, an emptiness that screams. Historians wonder, was this erasure an attempt to protect the honor of the empire? A military disaster so humiliating that it could not be admitted? Or worse, an internal betrayal, a failure of command that had to be swept under the sand of history? There are records of emperors ordering the rewriting of their own imperial narrative, and it would not be the first time that Rome preferred myth to truth. The disappearance of the Ninth Legion was not just a military tragedy, it was a carefully buried shame, a forbidden memory. But the more Rome tried to hide, the more the legend grew. When logic fails, the mystery looms large. And in the case of Legion 9, theories have emerged that go beyond history and touch the inexplicable. Some scholars and writers suggest that the soldiers fell into the hands of the Druids, Celtic priests who mastered ancestral rituals, human sacrifices, and rites forbidden even by the Romans. Were they offered to the gods of the forests, transformed into offerings to free Britain from imperial domination? Others believe that the disappearance did not come from outside, but from within, a silent betrayal, an internal uprising. Perhaps the Legion, already tired, isolated and abandoned, revolted against its own commanders. They executed the officers and deliberately disappeared into the mountains, living as free men or ghosts. And there are those who speak of a curse in occult forces awakened by Rome by desecrating sacred lands. Strange phenomena. Night, visions, inexplicable disappearances in full swing, an invisible, silent horror that consumed the Ninth without having to lift a single sword. Truth, myth, or madness, nobody knows. But to this day, there are those who say that in the cold hills of the north, footsteps can still be heard. The more Rome tried to erase Legion 9 from history, the more immortal it became, not in the official books, but in the stories told by the fire, in the myths of the north, in the pages of modern fiction. The missing Legion became a symbol of the unthinkable, an empire humiliated by the invisible. Films like Centurion and The Eagle of the Ninth Legion have rekindled the flame of mystery. Books, series, games, and even documentaries try to recreate the last steps of the Ninth. But they all stumble on the same point. There is no definitive ending. Archaeological expeditions continue to be organized. Researchers follow old maps, cross icy plains, study erased inscriptions on the banks of rivers and rocks. Some claim to have found traces. Others say that they are just echoes of something even older. The truth is that Legion 9 is no longer just a military enigma. It has become a living metaphor, the reminder that not even the greatest empires can erase the traces of human mystery. And the more time passes, the more the Ninth Legion becomes part of something bigger, the need to remember that which was made to be forgotten. And if the disappearance of Legion 9 isn't just a military mystery, but a mirror, a grim reminder that even the most powerful empires choose what should be remembered and what needs to be buried, because forgetting sometimes is more convenient than admitting failure. And when the truth bothers you, it is silenced. How many names were lost along with those soldiers? How many promises? How many life stories erased by a political decision, by shame, by fear? They marched into the darkness following orders from an empire that in the end erased them as if they were a mistake. But they left something that Rome could not control. The echo, a silence so deep that it became noise, a mystery so dense that it became a legend. And legends never die. Legion 9 may have been forgotten in the scrolls, but not in the consciousness of the truth seeker. And perhaps somewhere in history, the sound of their marching boots still echoes invisible, demanding what Rome denied: remembrance, justice, and voice. Now that you know the truth, the choice is yours. Let this story fade away once again, or keep it alive. If this mystery touched you, write in the comments, "The Ninth Legion lives," and leave your like so that this story continues to echo. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the secrets that Rome tried to bury. But we're going to dig it up.